Hi, I'm Stephanie London and welcome back to my channel. It's been quite a while since I made my last video. The end of 2015 just got kind of crazy busy and I definitely fell off the wagon with making videos, so apologies that it's been a while since my last video, but I sat down today and wrote a bit of a plan and came up with some video ideas that I think you guys will really enjoy and find super helpful, fingers crossed. And so I thought it would be a great idea to kind of kick off today with a bit of an update, some of the things that I've got going on with my writing and what books I have coming out. And then I also wanted to do a little bit of a kind of Q&A, FAQ sort of section. Recently, I participated in a panel at the Niagara Falls Library here in Ontario, and it was a really fantastic experience. And one of the things that I noticed while we were doing the Q&A section in that event was that there are definitely some questions that I get asked a lot as a published romance author, and so I thought it might be a good idea to kind of bundle some of those things in here, which may not kind of require a whole video dedicated to that topic, but then I can kind of run through some of the questions that if you're thinking about getting into romance writing, that maybe that will be helpful to you, just to kind of hear the experiences of someone who's been doing it for a little while. So with that being said, let's kick off this video with stuff that is coming up very soon, and it was very timely that I decided to film this video today because a box of my books arrived from the Harlequin offices, which is, honestly, that will never not be exciting for me, getting a box of my own books. So here it is. This is A Dangerously Sexy Affair, my next book coming out with Harlequin Blaze on the 1st of April. It's the second in the Dangerous Bachelors Club series, with the first being A Dangerously Sexy Christmas that came out last year. I'm actually writing book 3, which is A Dangerously Sexy Secret at the moment. One of the things I wanted to point out about this book, which I had a really great time writing it, the heroine is really into video games, and as a child of the 80s, I'm also very into video games. So if you love a little bit of kind of nerd video game references in your books, definitely check that one out. I also have a book coming out next month, back-to-back releases, and that is Loving the Odds. I'll put a picture of the cover somewhere up here. And that is part of the What Happens in Vegas series with Entangled Lovestruck. It's a really hilarious story set kind of in a 48-hour period in a crazy weekend in Vegas while there's a romance convention going on. And it's just, you know, a barrel of laughs. I had a great time writing that book. It's very kind of romantic comedy, whereas my Blaze books tend to be a bit on the sexier side. So if you like a lot of humor in with your romance, then that might be one for you to check out. All of the details about everything that's coming up will be linked below as well. And so in terms of what I'm actually working on at the moment, as I mentioned, I'm doing book 3 in the Dangerous Bachelors Club series, and Harlequin have signed me on for another 4 books, which will make it 6 in total. So that's really exciting. I've never been able to spend such an extended time in one world before, and I'm really enjoying that, being able to bring some of the characters back from previous books and then kind of setting up books for the future. So I am having a really wonderful time. I think 6 books will be it for this series, but you never know. And something else that I'm kind of toying with at the moment is doing a 3rd book in my Behind the Bar series. That one is set in my hometown of Melbourne, Australia. Those books have quite a lot of me in them. They're about 2 brothers. The first 2 books were about 2 brothers who are of Italian-Australian heritage, which is pretty much what I am. And so I get to put a lot of my own culture and kind of family experiences, and those books have a very big family element as well, which I really love writing siblings. Might be because I'm very close with my sister, but that's something that I really enjoy writing it and kind of putting into books, so it's not just about the couple, it's about kind of how they grow and their place within their families as well as within the relationship. So yeah, those are the things that I'm working on at the moment. And so let's do the Q&A bit. I've got notes here, so if I'm looking down a little bit, that's what I'm looking at, and please forgive me, I feel very rusty getting in front of the camera because it's been a while, so apologies if I seem a little bit scattered. So one of the questions that we got asked at the panel that I thought was really interesting was, why did we pick romance as the genre that we wanted to write? And for me, really, I've only ever written romance since I started writing. That was kind of where I knew I wanted to be. It's not to say that I won't do other things in the future, because, you know, a creative mind is always churning out ideas and not all of them are romance. But for now, and for what I have been doing, romance is definitely where I'm at. And I think for me, the reason that I decided to write romance was because I have a deep fascination with people. And in the romance genre, that's really what it's about. It's about people, it's about relationships, it's about the development and growth of characters. And in other genres, that sometimes takes a bit of a back seat. So if you're reading something that might be mystery or thriller or fantasy, oftentimes the plot is a really strong focal point for those types of books, and the character development, it's not to say that it's not there, because it usually is, but it's definitely the plot kind of comes first and then the character development is sort of overlaid over that, whereas I think romance is kind of the reverse, and that the plot will happen in the background, but the character arcs and character development and the relationship growth is what really is front and center of a romance novel. And my husband has often joked that I'm a frustrated psychologist. I am always fascinated by people and why they make the decisions that they make, and you know, what makes people tick. I love that kind of stuff. So that's definitely why I gravitated toward romance, because I wanted something that had a really strong character-driven focus rather than a plot-driven focus. A question that I have been asked many times, and that also came up in this panel, is do romance novels have a formula / do the publishers tell us what we have to write? And I find this question sometimes a bit difficult to answer. I know that the majority of the time when people are asking it, that they're not meaning it to be offensive or derogatory, but sometimes it does come across that way a little bit. And the best way that I have heard it described, and that I believe is correct, is that all genre fiction has a framework and an expectation. So whether it's romance, whether it's mystery, there is something that needs to be achieved by the story. And that is sort of an expectation that the reader has going into the book. So for a romance novel, that means it has to be a happy ending. If it's a love story, it might not have a happy ending, but you can't classify a book as a romance if there isn't a happy ending. Maybe not at the end of that book if it's a series, but at some point there has to be, the couple has to be together. You can't kill off Nicholas Sparks style, you know, one of the main characters. So that's the expectation for romance, just as if you're reading a mystery novel, you expect the crime to be solved. Like, would you really want to read a mystery novel where they don't solve the mystery? In fantasy novels, it's that, you know, often they're going on a journey, or they're just trying to defeat some kind of greater evil. You know, any type of genre fiction will have those expectations associated with it. And then I think a lot of fiction, particularly commercial fiction, has a framework to it, in that there are usually highs and lows of the story. Before the end, there's a big climactic kind of tension-filled event that happens, but that's kind of part of the structure of storytelling. So I don't think that it's that romance novels have a formula per se. It's just that as a piece of genre fiction or commercial fiction, there are expectations that need to be filled, and you know, a good romance novel will give the reader what they want. And so that's why I think some people kind of perceive there to be, you know, a formula. But I have had people ask me, like, when you sign with Harlequin, Mills and Boon, do they give you the guide that tells you how to write the book? And I always laugh at that, because yeah, it'll probably make my life a lot easier, but you know, I wouldn't enjoy that. And no, it's definitely not the case. I think where some people may get confused is that there is such a thing as writing to spec, where a publisher may come to an author and say, you know, we really want this story, no one's writing it, will you write it for us? And that does happen. The vast majority of my books are not like that, because I, you know, have the idea and I write what I want to write. But there are people out there that do write to spec, and it's not a bad thing. It's just the publisher might see that there's a, you know, a gap in the market that they want to fill, and they have a writer who they think could really do that story justice, and so they approach them and work together on the idea. But there is definitely no handbook on how to, you know, that when you sign a contract with any of these publishers, they don't then tell you this is what you have to write. It's very much a collaborative effort. So I hope that clears that up. I felt like that was a bit rambly, so sorry if that didn't make any sense. Another question that we got asked is, do we have to write a lot of sex in our books? And that with kind of romance novels becoming more in tune with the way that, you know, society has become, are all romance novels full of sex? And the answer is, the romance novel can be what you want it to be. There are pretty much any type of romance novels at either end of the spectrum and everything in between. So whether you want something that's really steamy and has a lot of kinky elements to it, you can find that. If you want a really sweet, I'm not going to use the word clean because I have a problem with that, but if you want a romance where there is no sex and it's just about the emotion, and then you can get that too. Harlequin has a line called Heartwarming, which is a, you know, very, very sweet, no sex, no, and not even a lot of sexual tension, it's just emotional tension. You can find those books as well. And then everything in between, whether you want your romance with an inspirational faith element, you can find that too. You can get lots without. So pretty much if there's any type of romance novel that you want to read or write, there's a market for it. Another question that we got asked was, how quickly do we have to write our books? And I mean, I can only really answer for myself here, and the answer to that is I write them as quickly as I want to write them, at least when I sign the contract. So I basically determine how long I need to take to write a book, and then I work with the agent or editor to say, you know, we want to set the deadline to be in however many months time, and then I sign the contract and I go on my merry way. So the publisher will, you know, love to have the book as quickly as they possibly can, as my editor tells me, but at the end of the day, I kind of keep my own schedule, and you know, I don't want to sacrifice the quality of a book for just being able to get X number of books out. But at the same time, it's a, you know, this is my career and I do want to have more books for readers to read, so it's definitely trying to balance those two things, but I have a lot of control over that. Another question that I got asked was if I have a pen name. So I don't know if I've actually addressed this in any of my videos so far, but yes, Stephanie London is not my real name, it's my pen name. However, Stephanie is my real name. Did that make sense? So yes, Stephanie is what I am called in real life. It's what's on my birth certificate, but I changed the last name. There's a couple of reasons for that. At the time when I started writing, I was working in a really conservative banking environment, and I just wasn't comfortable kind of meshing the two things together, but I had been given advice from a few authors to keep my first name as it was, because it makes it a lot easier when you're at conferences or events and people are calling you by your real name, that you'll actually be able to respond to them. And you know, Stephanie is like, it's a good name, I like it, it's, you know, what people call me, so I was happy to keep that. And my name is spelt with an F, which causes no end of problems when proofing covers and other sorts of things. But yeah, that is my real name, but London is not my real surname. And another question that we got asked was how do we plan our stories, or how do we decide what we're going to write? Now, I think I have done a video on sort of finding inspiration, maybe. If I haven't, I'll add that to the list. But this was more in kind of terms of knowing what to write next. So after you've written the book that's your initial idea, like how do I keep knowing what to write and how do I get started? For me, every book is different, to be honest. Sometimes it's a character that comes to mind whose story kind of needs to be told, or sometimes it's like I might visualize the meeting of the hero and heroine. So every book is completely different, but I find that with series books, as I'm writing one book, the ideas for the subsequent books are starting to percolate because I'm already delving a little bit into those characters. So the book that I'm writing currently, which is A Dangerously Sexy Secret, you actually meet Reese in this book, which is the second book, and part of his role in the second book, and playing into the black moment and some of the conflict there, got me thinking about why he was acting a certain way and what his beliefs were, and that actually kind of then sparked the idea for the next book. So sometimes it's, you know, I'm starting to play in that character's space already and that's how things come, but sometimes they're just completely out of the blue. I'll be, you know, having a shower. I don't know, does anyone read the Reddit thread, you know, shower thoughts? But that's where I get a lot of my ideas, as while I'm in the shower or while I'm kind of waking up in the morning while the mind's sort of getting going. It might just, you know, it might be a little snippet of an idea. It could be a scene. It could be a problem that I feel would make for a good story or a good character. So it can really come from anywhere and can start at any point. But what I do when I get that idea is write it down straight away so I don't forget. And then I have a document that I go through when I'm sort of planning each book that helps me to really flesh that idea and the characters out. That's a video that I definitely have planned in the future, talking about my process a little bit more and what tools I use to get a story where it needs to be and to get my mind in the right mindset to write a book. So if you're interested in seeing that, definitely give this video a thumbs up to let me know, or if you have any sort of specific things that you'd like to know about the process, then leave a comment below. So that is it for today. Thanks so much for sticking with me on that little unexpected break from filming, but I definitely have more videos planned in the upcoming weeks, including a couple of videos on more craft related things, because I noticed that the one I did before Christmas seems to be getting a lot more views than other videos, so I guess that's what people are interested in. So there will definitely be some writing craft videos coming in the future, as well as a look at my process of how I go about writing books, revising and editing books, and also sort of the setup and tools and things that I use to actually write a book as well. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching it, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.